Okay, so this is for part A of the fruits and vegetables lab. So I just wanted to show everything that I got first for part A. So here you can see we have the head of red cabbage, and here we have our carrot. Here is the head of broccoli, and here is the head of cauliflower. And here I decided to use cream of tartar. And here we also have our baking soda, and I have water. These are the labels that I created, so that way I can place the finished vegetable proportions on here. Okay, now I have my vegetables cut into thirds, as you can see. Although I did have a hard time cutting the cauliflower, it was a lot more difficult and tougher to cut into than I expected, but I ended up getting it into thirds, as you can see here. And here's everything else one more time. Okay, now that my vegetables are cut into thirds, I added 2 cups of water into this pot to prepare for boiling. And I also have another pot over here that I'm gonna use at the same time with 2 cups of water. Unfortunately, I do not have 4 pots with me, so it's gonna take me a little bit longer to complete this lab, but that's okay. Just a note, I accidentally cut my cauliflower into huge pieces, as you saw before, and didn't even realize like how big that was. So here they are into thirds, into much smaller pieces. So I think that's gonna be easier, but just wanted to let you know that I made that change. Okay, so as you can tell from this video, this is really boiling now, and so I'm gonna add my 1/3 of vegetable to this, which is gonna be the broccoli, and then I'm gonna reduce it down to a simmer as according to the directions. So this is gonna go in. Okay, now I brought this down to a simmer and I turned it down a little bit. So this is a lot gentler than a boil. It's not as intense as a boil. So this is gonna remain in here, this piece of broccoli, for 5 minutes. Here is a view of the broccoli that is simmering for 5 minutes. Okay, this broccoli has been simmering for 5 minutes and is now complete. So this is what it looks like over here. You can tell that the florets and the top of it are a pretty dark green, but also too, compared to the stems, this is a lot brighter than the top. So you can take note of that. And I wrote some cards, like little flashcards to remember the labels and everything, and it'll work even though it's still wet, but this is gonna be the broccoli for the control group, for the chlorophyll control group. Okay, for the next step, I'm going to move on to the acid portion of this. So I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of this cream of tartar before I bring the water back to a boil, and then I will place the 1/3 of broccoli in there and make sure to bring it down to a simmer and cook that for 5 minutes. Okay, so here is cream of tartar, and I decided to pour the cream of tartar into a bowl. This is not 4 tablespoons yet, but I have my tablespoon measurer right here, so I'm gonna scoop 4 tablespoons of this and put it back into the pot before I bring that back up to a boil again for the next piece of broccoli. Okay, so this will be the first tablespoon of 4 going into the pot for the next piece of broccoli. As you can see, there's some little broccoli pieces in here. I'm not gonna record all 4 of these tablespoons going in, but this is just to show that here I'm gonna do this 4 times, and then I will continue on with the rest of the instructions. Now this is the 4th tablespoon of cream of tartar going in here. So I'm gonna bring this back up to a boil now. Okay, we are now at a boil for the 4 tablespoons of cream of tartar that have been added. So now I'm gonna add my next piece of broccoli into here. Now that this piece of broccoli is in here, I'm gonna bring this down to a simmer for 5 minutes. So here you can tell this is at a simmer. It's a lot gentler than a boil, so this is gonna stay in here for 5 minutes. Okay, so this is the piece of broccoli that was cooked in the cream of tartar, and you can see that this portion over here really wasn't in contact with the cream of tartar, but where it was, you can tell that this is a much duller green compared to this side over here. So this is a lot duller, and in person, instead of just looking through the video camera, it looks like almost a greenish brownish color. Now this is baking soda, so I'm gonna prepare to add 4 tablespoons to this pot. This is now the 4th tablespoon going in of baking soda. So now that these 4 tablespoons of baking soda have been added, I'm just waiting for this to get up to a rapid boil. Now this broccoli has been placed in the boiling water, but this is now going to be brought down to a simmer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So there we go. Okay, so this is the broccoli that's simmering. There's still a little bit more time left, but this is with the baking soda that's been added. And I just wanted to record this to show that you can tell that there is a color change, especially in the water and the pigmentation of it, if you can tell. So I wanted to record and show that. Okay, so this is the broccoli piece that is just finished simmering in the 4 tablespoons of baking soda. And to me, it looks like it might be hard to tell in the video compared to this, I'm not sure, but to me in person, not looking through the video camera, it does look a little bit brighter than both of these 2 pieces right here. So this is the color that I observed. And also too, when this was simmering, I did notice that the water changed color, which I did record. It changed to a green pigment with the baking soda added. And also too, this piece of broccoli that I used was more delicate. As you can see, it fell apart into some pieces here. So I wanted to show that change. Okay, as you can tell, I made a mess with the broccoli when I did this last portion of it, but now we are moving on to the carrots. Okay, so here we have our boiling water, and I'm going to put our carrot in here. So this will be our control. And then we are going to bring this down to a simmer. So that is a lot more gentle. Okay, so this is the carotenoid control, and looking at this, it definitely seems a little bit brighter than when I got it at the store. So I can definitely tell that, and also too, you can kind of see this little bit of skin that's coming apart over here. But other than that, it just kind of looks a little bit more vibrant from when I bought it today. Okay, so we're now at a boil, and I'm gonna add my carrot in here with the 4 tablespoons of cream of tartar, although I did end up running out of cream of tartar. So after I finish with the carrots, I am going to use vinegar for the other vegetables, for the cabbage and for the cauliflower. But here is the carrot going in. Now this has been brought down to a simmer, so this is gonna remain in here for 5 minutes. So this is what it looks like with the carrots simmering in the cream of tartar. This is the carrot that just came out of the pot with the 4 tablespoons of cream of tartar. And I can tell that it seems a little bit duller than this carrot over here in terms of color. It might be hard to tell on the video, but this one looks a little bit darker than this carrot over here from my point of view. But also too, you can see, if I get my camera to focus in, you can see that there's these white spots on here that you can see right here, that I think that this is from the cream of tartar that has been in the pot. So that's definitely something to take note of. All right, so now 4 tablespoons of baking soda have been added to this pot of water. I'm just waiting on this to get a little bit more to a boil, and then I'm going to add the carrot in here. Okay, so here this is boiling, so I'm going to drop my carrot in, and then I'm going to bring it down to a simmer as per the directions. Now this is brought to a simmer, so we're gonna wait for 5 minutes. So time is up on this carrot that's been simmering in the baking soda that I had added to this pot, and I wanted to record this and take note of the fact that you could kind of tell that in the water that it's an orange pigmentation, and I think that that looks really cool, and that is a result of this carotenoid, so I just wanted to share. Okay, so this is for the carotenoid alkali, and this just came out from being simmered for 5 minutes, and you can tell that there's some skin coming off of it right here, so it's pretty soft right around here if you look, and it's a little bit more delicate, but also too, looking at this not through the camera, because I'm sorry about the lighting, but it looks much brighter and more vibrant than the 2 of these carrots together. So that's what I'm getting from this one. Okay, so this is now boiling and we're moving on to the cauliflower for the control group. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that in here. And then this is gonna go down to a simmer. And now this piece of cauliflower is gonna simmer for 5 minutes. Okay, now this piece of cauliflower is finished simmering, and this is the control, and this looks a little bit more yellowy or golden than when I bought it in the store, so that's the color change that I observed. And the texture of this, it's a little bit softer, but other than that, it's just a color change that I've noticed, and just a little bit softer, but not a lot. I unfortunately ran out of cream of tartar. I did not get enough, so I'm gonna be using vinegar for the cauliflower and for the cabbage when I get there. 4 tablespoons have been added of vinegar to this pot, so now I'm gonna put in my cauliflower and bring down to a simmer. All right, so this is the cauliflower after it's been simmering in the vinegar. As I said that I had run out of cream of tartar, but this is what it looks like. And compared to this one from before, from the control, it seems that this color is a little bit lighter from my point of view. In terms of texture, feels about the same compared to this one, but this is what it looks like right here. 4 tablespoons of baking soda have been added to this new pot of water for the last piece of the cauliflower, so I'm just waiting on this to get up to a boil. Okay, so we're at a boil now with the 4 tablespoons of baking soda added. So now I'm gonna put in this cauliflower, the last piece, and I'm gonna turn this down to a simmer. So I'm gonna do that now. As this is simmering in the water, I noticed that there is a color change in the pigmentation of the water if you look closely, so I wanted to capture that. This is the last portion of the cauliflower that was just simmered in the baking soda, and you can tell clearly that there is a difference in color here. Let me get this to focus. So this is a lot more of a vibrant yellow than these two right here. So you can definitely tell that there's a lot more coloration in this piece of cauliflower compared to these two right here. And it also does feel much softer, and you can see how easily that this piece breaks off a little bit, so there is that. This is now the last portion of the Part A lab for the fruits and vegetables, and so we are gonna finish off with the red cabbage. This water is now at a boil, so we are going to move on to our cabbage next, and that'll be the last part for this lab with everything. And now this is gonna simmer for 5 minutes. Right off the bat, I noticed that the water is turning to a blue color, so I wanted to capture that. Oops, sorry, that was the steam, but you can tell over here that this is turning into a blue pigmented water, which is pretty cool. Okay, so this is the control for the red cabbage, and it's really cool because you can tell here that just from it being placed in simmered water for 5 minutes that there is blue coloration, and the water even changed to a blue pigment as well. But you can see here where we changed to blue, and there's even some here, which I'm gonna push this back a little bit to show you, but you can even see over here too that there's blue pigmentation over here as well as a result of this anthocyanin. So I just added 4 tablespoons of vinegar to the water and before putting in my next piece of cabbage, and it turns it into this pink color. Now that my vinegar has been added, I am going to put this in here now that we're at a boil, and then I'm gonna reduce this down to a simmer. This is the result after this piece of cabbage has been simmering in the vinegar that I got. So this is what it looks like. It is a pinkish color, and especially over here too as well, you can see where that pink pigmentation took place. And in terms of texture, you can definitely see that the layers are coming apart, so it's definitely a lot more delicate. But this is what it looks like, and this is, it stained this card too, but this also is what it looks like underneath. Okay, so we are almost through with the part A of this lab with the vegetables, and so I just added 4 tablespoons of baking soda, and I'm gonna wait for this to get to a boil before I put in my last piece of cabbage. All right, we are at a boil, so I'm gonna add the last piece of cabbage in, and this is with the baking soda in here. And then I'm gonna bring this down to a simmer for 5 minutes. With this being at a simmer, you can tell that there's already starting to be some blue pigmentation on the red cabbage, and you can see too that there's blue over here and over here as well, and even in the water as well. After simmering the final piece of cabbage in the baking soda, you can tell that there's green coloration of the water, which is pretty cool. And then also too, you can see here that there is a lot of color. You can see that there is like purplish and blue and green right there. So you can see all that, and this is very delicate too. You can tell that this has fallen apart. So that was it for the last video of the part A for the vegetable lab.
Overall thoughts from this lab, I really enjoyed completing this lab. I thought it was a lot of fun and it didn't even feel like homework to me because of that. But the task was to prepare a baking sheet or a tray with labels. So we had our acid, we had our control, and we had our alkali. So our acids included either our cream of tartar or vinegar, depending on what was used. I used both because I accidentally ran out of cream of tartar, but that was for that one. And then the control, so nothing was added. And then we have our alkali, which was baking soda. So what we did is we brought up 2 cups of water to a boil and then placed a third of the vegetable in the boiling water, and that was reduced to a simmer. And we cooked that for 5 minutes uncovered, and then to set aside the piece of the vegetable to evaluate as the control. And I kept the water in the pot for step 3. So then I went and added my acid to the pot of water, which was 4 tablespoons, and brought that back to a boil, and then placed a third of the vegetable in that boiling water, and then brought down to a simmer for 5 minutes, uncovered. And then for the alkali, I used new water and I added 4 tablespoons of baking soda to the pot and brought that to a boil and placed the last portion of the vegetable in that and then brought it down to a simmer for 5 minutes. In terms of any issues that may have occurred, I don't feel that I ran into any issues, although a possibility could be that maybe I said that something was simmering, but maybe it still wasn't completely brought down to a simmer. But other than that, I don't think that I ran into any problems. Overall, the results of my lab were what I had expected. Although, like I mentioned earlier, a possibility of something that could have gone wrong is that maybe I brought something down, or I thought I brought something down to a simmer, but maybe it was still boiling at that point, so maybe that didn't quite count. But other than that, I feel like it went well. And also, too, the purpose of completing this lab was to observe how different substances like alkaline and acids react with vegetables and affect the composition of them in terms of texture and color. So that definitely reinforced the lecture material, and doing it as a lab was really cool because I got to see physically how and why all of these color chemical changes occurred and everything. So I thought that that was definitely helpful, and I really enjoyed this lab.